What's up, broadcasters? Welcome back to another episode of Branding Banter, where you can get all the nerdy news you need to know about. My name is Jeff Franklin, National Accounts Manager with Headwear USA.
And I'm Meg Erber, Director of Sales over at Performa.
And I'm Sarah Goshgarian Unruh at Stalls.
And we are joined today by a special guest, Milissa Gibson with Lane 7. Melissa, why don't you just give us a quick introduction of yourself, maybe how you got started in the industry?
Hey, I'm so happy to be here. How I got started in the industry, oh my gosh. I am the sales director now for Lane 7, but I started in the industry with Liberty Bags about 15 years ago, working with all the wholesalers. From there, I went to Next Level Apparel, right, as they were kind of hitting that big peak that they hit. And then from there, I decided to take a turn at USA Manufacturing with US Blanks and learned all about cut and sew and domestic manufacturing. And then I jumped back into the import side with Lane 7. And next week will be 3 years that I've been here.
That's awesome. I remember the first time I met Melissa, she had done like our product preview when I was at SNS and she was at Next Level. And then I remember seeing her either like the next time, and I think she forgot who I was, and I was like, hey, and she was like, who's this? I was like, it's me. But Melissa actually took me under her wing and taught me so much about fabrication, silhouette. I still remember, and I was like, I am learning so much, and I literally, that was my base for everything, was what I learned from Melissa. So everybody can thank her for this.
Well, that's huge. Thank you. I usually think I'm rambling on with useless information, so thank you.
Well, I am filled with useless information, so it was a partnership and friendship made in heaven. So
that's very sweet to say.
Melissa, thanks so much for the gift. We appreciate it.
Beth. Oh, they love it. Don't listen.
All right. Well, look, before we get into today's topic, we got to tell you the fine sponsor of this broadcast is brought to you by our good friends over at Alpha Broder. And look, Alpha Broder is America's leading supplier of wholesale apparel, promotional products, and imprintable goods. Alpha Broder's products build brands, champion causes, acknowledge achievements, and offer limitless solutions. They carry more than 6,500 styles from over 60 brands of classic and trending products like wholesale T-shirts, fleece, drinkware, bags, journals, and more. Alpha Broder is empowering their customers to brand the world through market-leading service, products, and solutions. So be sure to check them out at alphabroder.com. Tell them the Branding Banter sent you. Why don't we get down to business? Obviously, Lane 7, you guys sell through Alpha Broder as a mill, right? So
it's been a big week.
Last week's episode, we discussed the massive acquisition from SNS, buying or acquiring the Alpha Broder company. So we kind of want to dabble a little bit into sort of maybe the mill's perspective, or from your perspective, like what that means in a big merger and acquisition like this. But I think ultimately, before we get to that point, we want to discuss some different ways to leverage vendor relationships. I mean, is that what we were going with here, Meg?
Yeah, let's start off with Alpha stuff first, because it's just segue, right? Yeah, let's just do that, because I think then we can kind of talk about the importance of having a very strong relationship with your vendors and how to grow your business through vendor relationships. So, listen, we would love to hear at the end of the day, like when you're a vendor for a company that is being acquired by another company in this industry that does not sell you the brand, you really have two options. So I guess there's two options: either bring the brand over, or you are just, let go, I guess. So, do you guys know what that looks like yet, or what the plan is? And you want to give us some feedback on that?
Yeah, I got the scoop about it maybe 15 minutes ahead of the public broadcast from another mill rep. That it was happening. This is my 9th acquisition at the distributor level that I've lived through, so I know what to expect. The last biggest one was when Alpha acquired Bodick and Rhodes, and I was at Next Level at the time, and Next Level was not at Alpha. So lived through that transition. It's scary, I think, but I really prefer being on one side of it. I think that there's an argument to be made at that point. And certainly from an inventory standpoint, that's what I immediately thought of. You just reduced everyone's production by a third. But for everyone who's on both sides of that, how do you unwind that? What that's going to do to, sorry about that. But I think what you do with that inventory, how that cutting production in a third for the 5 largest mills in this country is going to have real effects on pricing in the long run. I think pricing is going to get cheap for a lot of people because they're going to have to unload inventory, but then it's going to have to go back up because their production rates aren't the same.
I never even thought of that.
Yeah, it's a good perspective.
And I think the other thing that you're going to start to see is more mills start to get more aggressive direct.
Yeah, it's the other side too.
That's never fun when you were at the supplier. I mean, just I lived through that a lot, and I think my biggest competitors were always the mills. To be honest, I hated it. Yeah.
So for you guys, Milissa, Lane 7, you distribute out of where? Where are your?
We have a warehouse out of here in LA, and then we just opened a new one 5 weeks ago in North Carolina. So we're coast to coast at this point. But a whole strategic piece of it has been growing wholesalers, and now you just reduced it down to what? There's only 5 privately held wholesalers at this point. Everyone else is in VC money or smaller regional. So it's gonna change the game dramatically.
So who are the top 5? You have Sanmar, S&S, Alpha, ACC. Is that what you're considering?
ACC was just acquired by VC about a month ago.
I missed that one.
Yep, I just heard about it yesterday. So I was like, and then you have Staten, and then you have SLC, Mission, and McCreary's, and that's it.
McCreary's,
and you think about where the landscape was 10 years ago, and you had almost 20 wholesale distributors, and now we're left with the final 6.
Wow.
It's interesting.
So, and Carolina Made and Print Gear are also on that, but Carolina Made and Print Gear and the McCreary's 3 is what I tend to refer to them as, or the last Mohicans.
So Lane 7, I've heard a lot of it's the buzzword lately. Very quickly, tell us what makes Lane 7 apparel so special, and then let's get into the vendor stuff, because I want to see what makes you so special. Do you have competing styles? I did take a quick look, and I saw the sets, and that is so big right now. And I just had a franchise owner ask me about it anyway. So, but tell us what makes you guys so special.
I think the thing that makes us really special is the feel of the garment, and then I tell people the price point, and then it's just a home run. It's really elevated fashion at an achievable price point. We've done all the things in the retail that came into the market, really trying to elevate where fleece was 10 years ago. We've elevated the entire game and forced everyone to bring up to retail levels, which is really exciting.
Very nice.
Very soft and comfortable. I've got their lightweight French terry on right now. So
stand up and look at that decoration, because you guys decorate too, right?
So they don't decorate. We happen to be next to each other at a show yesterday, and they were utilizing our DTF transfers, Stahl's DTF transfers, our Ultra Color Max. And so it was a great kind of activation experience right there, so people could touch and feel both products, which is fantastic.
Nice.
Very nice.
So, because I know, Meg, you were sort of quick to kind of skip on to the other thing, but I wanted to just ask from the mills perspective, because you had mentioned, now mills may be looking to go more aggressive towards direct. Why is a major acquisition like this necessarily a bad thing for a mill? Because from my perspective, and I'm layman here, I've got no clue. I would think that it's a good thing in the sense that, if you're selling through Alpha now, but you're not selling through S&S, now you've got access, if they keep all the mills, now you've got access to $4 billion worth of revenue versus just the 2 that Alpha was presenting.
But it's not $4 billion, because a lot of that business was duplicated. So now you just consolidated it into one, right? So you had people who were usually leveraging S&S and Alpha against each other a lot, or bring in the third, Sanmar. They'll leverage them for price. That part of the game is going to be eliminated, right? So, and then there's a pretty clear indicator to me that there's going to be a big private label play.
Mm-hmm.
Also, it's hard for anybody to represent 175 brands. You can't do it. So the person who can really direct that conversation and advocate for your own brand is the mill itself. So, kind of, there's a lot of dynamics that are at play in that are kind of always bubbling beneath the surface. But, if you take S&S right now, they, when they bought TSC, they bought Toltex.
Mm-hmm.
So, which then went in direct competition between some Bella, Next Level, right? That 202 goes against, and they'd much rather sell that. That's a higher margin product. So they incentivize and push their reps to push that and not the other brands. So Alpha is a massive manufacturer. And I think with their house brands, I think this is a real consideration for mills to take in.
Wow, this is a completely different perspective that we didn't even think about. So this is this is good.
Yeah.
But this bleeds into the vendor relationship piece of it, right? Is that I think what people learned during COVID is you have to broaden out your scope of vendors and not be so reliant on just a few, especially from a wholesale perspective, because they were like the first ones to get destroyed from inventory standpoint. So you had smaller mills like Lane 7 kind of peek to the surface because we had inventory at a time a lot of people did not. So I think my first suggestion to every vendor is just because you haven't heard of it or you haven't experienced it, open the door, have the conversation. It may be the thing that changes your business completely, right? And like Meg, like you were saying earlier, when they come in and they're bringing you information that, I can spew all sorts of useless information out there. But listen, there may be some things that you can take away on how to sell that product or that and position it and get more of a return investment from your own clients out of that one little nugget.
I will say, if I put on my distributor hat, which it's been years since I've been distributor, but whenever we had our mill reps that came in, I found it so valuable because they could talk really to all of the intricate details of that specific brand, where whenever my CMR rep or my Alpha rep or whoever came in, they had some items that they focused a lot on. And then the other styles, if I asked about something that wasn't kind of in the repertoire of what they knew, they just kind of skated over what the questions were. So they really couldn't answer them. To your point, like it's hard to understand 150 brands or 175, whatever it is. So to me, I loved having the relationship with my mill reps.
Yeah, and I think it goes down to that's how this is multi-line reps too. Like you have an hour in a meeting and you have seven brands to talk about, which is actually it's harder when you're an apparel supplier. At S&S we had like 80 brands. I think it's how do you tell that story effectively and make it so it's memorable, right? And you have to have some key pieces that you love and that you're passionate about, and you go in, you're like, I'm not here to shove things down your throat, but like, listen, this shirt or this sweatshirt, you have to touch and feel. And I think being able to do that for the things that are going to, at the end of the day, help translate into a sale or into a case study or into a project or into a relationship, being able to trust your vendors, I think that's super important when you have that relationship. Well, and it comes back to a story that I had just heard. I will not tell the brand or the company or any of that, but a very good friend of mine had a very good relationship with one of her supplier partners, and they do have a retail division, and an order, like a customized order, came in for them, and they knew that they could not service the account like a distributor would, and they gave that lead to this distributor. It was a $56,000 order that now that order is now a customer. And now she can keep engaging and growing that customer and turn that customer. I mean, that's just one order. So if that's one order, there's a whole lot more where that comes from. So I think when you have that relationship, that really good relationship where they know you, they know that you've, they can see by your order count what you're putting through, that you're reliable, you're dependable, you're getting your shit done when it comes to being a distributor, you're servicing the account. that's their name attached to that. If they're confident that you will go out and sell their product, not, okay, well, hey, I'm lane 7. I just gave you a lead. Now I'm going to take it back and I'm going to go buy a Bella outfit or an independent trading outfit. You know that, and you can trust that. So having that relationship with your vendor is one way that you can help grow your business, because you can ask for leads. Don't be afraid to do that. If you have the relationship as a distributor, ask. The answer is always no unless you ask. That being said, are there any other takeaways, Melissa, that you could give the audience on like key ways to grow their businesses through vendor relations?
Yeah, I think my favorite stories are always the customers who never believe me on a product. They're like, just get this in front of your customer. I promise it will make a world of difference. They'll come to me with a project and they'll be like, I hate this. I'm like, you don't have to, but I promise you this is what your customer is ultimately looking for. I've had customer after customer come back to me and like, you've made me so much money with this. And if I can't do it, or if it's something that's not in my wheelhouse, I'll tell them, hey, you know what? Go talk to so-and-so at, X brand. Go talk to them. This is the style you're looking for. This is roughly how much it is. Here's who you need to talk to. But then what that does for me as a vendor, just like you guys, that brings the business ultimately back to me at some point, because I just became a problem solver in the long run.
Yeah, I think you hit on another great, fantastic point. Even for me, like it stalls, right? Like I touched apparel a little bit prior to being in this role, but even now, I've learned so much more from the mill reps because it's a different type of relationship, and you guys are so like tightly like intertwined. Like all of the styles of who offers what, and so you've become like this fantastic resource for anything that I need from an apparel perspective. To your point, if you can't do it, you know who to point me to and where then I can find
it. Yeah, and that's from being in this industry, going to all these little unique trade shows that aren't the big guys, but you're hanging out for 2 days in Vegas.
Yeah.
You just learn, because one, I can only wear so many of my own hoodies. I got to switch out to other things occasionally. So and I have my own screen printing shop, so I understand, like, from that side, I know what has to happen. So yeah, it's a big tool. And I think that people don't rely on their vendors enough to be like, if you can't do it, tell me where I can.
Yeah. Well, Jeff, you've been a vendor for like 90 years. What type of effective tips have you seen when working with distributors?
So I'm sorry, rephrase that question, because I thought you were going to ask me like what other kind of ways can you leverage the relationship? I mean, is that essentially what you're asking?
Yeah.
So I've definitely have been on the giving side of referrals before, as well as the receiving side of referrals. So referrals are awesome. And I think you're right. Asking for them doesn't make you look like a dirtbag. I think it's actually, a really professional thing to do, given certain circumstances. But you also can't, with the ask, you can't have an expectation. You've got to, put the ask out there and hope that, it comes back or comes to fruition. If there's an expectation there, then that's when it gets a little sketch. But another way I think to leverage a vendor relationship is, I think that we are pulled from pillar to post, as distributors, as suppliers across the board, we're all pulled from pillar to post. But one thing that I've experienced is that, there are a ton of suppliers that are offering incredible tools for distributors, such as spec samples. And I don't think enough distributors take advantage of it, or maybe they feel like they are taking advantage of it, if you will, and therefore use that as a crutch not to do it. So I would say, if you've got a supplier that's offering something, take them up on it, regardless of what your feeling is as to whether or not they're, you're taking advantage of them, because they're offering it for a reason. They know it works. So, that's certainly something that I would say is an incredible value and an incredible way to take advantage or leverage a vendor relationship.
There's also, on the flip side of that, taking too much advantage of your vendors, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
Asking for discounts at inappropriate times, and kind of understanding there's only so much for me. I get a lot of requests that are out of the park ridiculous. So like this morning, I had someone submit a discount for 185 pieces on my best-selling style. No.
I can tell you, Yes isn't going to. Sandmar isn't going to. Like Sandmar has like their minimum at 500 pieces. Doesn't matter if it's 500 Nike polos or 500 t-shirts. Like it's going to be a minimum 500. Yeah.
So, and I understand, everyone's trying to chisel and compete, but at some point, like, be I will say no more often than yes, just because mills operate differently for quoting structures. That's what the advantage of wholesalers is. They'll discount at a lot lower rate than we will. But I think just knowing when to pull that and ask for the quote, and don't ask for it all the time. That's where, like, every order, it just gets annoying.
Yeah, that's a good point. That is a good point. So leveraging your relationship, knowing when, if it's offered, take advantage of it. Don't take advantage of your reps, but take advantage of the offers.
Yes.
And I think setting expectations too. I know when I used to go into meetings, I'd be like, this is, don't be afraid to ask, but this is where we set our minimums, and happy to work with you. But again, I think it's just keeping that open relationship, going to networking events, really cash in on that. I know the regionals do such a great job of trying to do these networking events. I know Stagney's doing like a kayak trip in a couple days, and Promotions East is right around the corner. I know, Jeff. I know.
What the hell's my invitation for that? Come on, John.
It's the 22nd. It's coming up very soon. But anything else, guys?
No, I think that covers it for me. Sarah, what about you? You got anything else to ask or bring to the...
No, I have one question. I'm super curious, and this is me, and it might be a longer answer, and so I'm so sorry. When ordering as a distributor, coming to the mill versus coming to your wholesaler?
Yeah, so usually the mill is slightly less expensive, right? That's why you're coming to them, right? Because there's not an additional margin structure that's being taken from the wholesaler perspective. So that's why our thresholds are generally higher. I don't personally usually give discounts under 5,000 pieces. I start out lower, so my threshold to get there is a lot higher. And we're not built for piece pick and pack. That's very costly for us. So it needs to make sense from a cost and margin perspective of where we will look at that. There's sometimes we make exceptions to that depending on what the product is, but but that's generally kind of the hard and fast rule for most wholesalers. They won't even really look at a lot of stuff. From an apparel perspective, I know hard goods and hats can be kind of at a different wavelength there. But for apparel, that's generally where we start to look at it.
That is super helpful. So thank you.
Yeah.
Never asked that question before. So thank you.
All right. Good deal. Well, this episode was brought to you by our good friends over at Alpha Broder. They're America's leading supplier of wholesale apparel, promotional products, and imprintable goods. Alpha Broder's products build brands, champion causes, acknowledge achievements, and offer limitless solutions. They carry more than 6,500 styles from over 60 brands of classic and trending products like wholesale t-shirts, fleece, drinkware, bags, journals, and more. Alpha Broder's empowering their customers to brand the world through market-leading service, products, and solutions. So be sure to check them out at alphabroder.com. Tell them that Branding Banter sent you. And until next time, Milissa, it was awesome having you. Thank you for joining us, and we'll be seeing you guys. Till next time.
Thank you.